The moment I saw a bright yellow boot clamped onto my front wheel, I honestly thought it was a prank. Not a funny one, but the kind where someone expects you to laugh later once the confusion wears off. Then I noticed the laminated warning notice zip-tied to my windshield, stamped with an HOA logo that absolutely did not belong on this road, and a woman in oversized sunglasses standing 10 feet away, smiling like she'd just won a court case she invented in her head. I had parked there for less than 8 minutes. This was my road. I owned it. Deeded, surveyed, recorded, and boringly legal in every way possible. And yet somehow, a woman I'd never met before had decided my car needed to be immobilized for the crime of existing too close to her sense of authority. I stood there staring at the boot, keys still in my hand, while she cleared her throat loudly behind me, the sound sharp and practiced, like she'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "You can't remove that," she said. "It's an enforcement device." I turned slowly. "You booted my car." "Yes," she replied, nodding with satisfaction. "You were in violation." That was my first real introduction to Karen. The road itself wasn't flashy. It was a narrow paved strip branching off the county highway, cutting through a stretch of trees before opening up to my property and a few others farther down. Years ago, before I bought the land, the developer had tried to roll it into an HOA plan. That plan failed. The road stayed private. I bought it along with the land, and I paid to maintain it myself. No signs, no gates, just quiet ownership and the assumption that adults knew how to read property lines. Karen, apparently, did not. She stood with her feet planted wide, clipboard tucked under one arm, phone already in her hand like she was waiting for applause. Her blazer looked expensive in the way that screamed board meetings, and her smile had that tight edge people get when they believe rules bend for them. "You're blocking HOA access," she continued. "We've already had complaints." I let out a short laugh before I could stop myself. "Access to what?" "Our road," she said, as if that settled everything. I glanced down the asphalt, then back at her. "This isn't your road." She tilted her head slightly, pitying me. "It's used by the community. That doesn't make it yours." Her smile flickered, just a little. "Sir, I'm the HOA compliance officer." Something in her tone suggested she expected me to salute. I crouched to inspect the boot, not touching it, just looking. Heavy steel, cheap lock, the kind of thing you buy online and feel important owning. I stood back up and met her eyes. "Did you install that?" "Yes." "On my vehicle?" "Yes." "Without my permission?" She crossed her arms. "You should have checked the rules." That was the moment annoyance tipped into curiosity. Not anger yet. I wanted to understand how deep this went, how confidently wrong a person could be while standing on someone else's land. "What HOA rule covers private roads?" I asked. She tapped her clipboard. "Section 14.3. Unauthorized parking." I nodded slowly. "And where does that section apply?" "Within HOA boundaries." I gestured around us. "Which do not include this road." Karen's lips pressed together. She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "We've been using this road for years. And I've been owning it the entire time." She scoffed. "Ownership isn't absolute." That sentence hung in the air like a bad smell. A pickup truck rolled past us slowly, the driver glancing between the booted car and Karen with open confusion. She straightened instantly, waving politely, performance back online. "Everything's under control," she called out. The truck didn't stop. I felt something shift then. Not just irritation, but the familiar click of a puzzle piece dropping into place. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a test. She'd done this before. Maybe not to me, but to someone. Someone who folded. Someone who didn't know better. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of the boot, the notice, and Karen standing proudly beside it. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Documenting theft." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me." "You attached your property to mine without consent," I said calmly. "That's theft. Or vandalism. We can debate the category later." She laughed, sharp and humorless. You don't know how this works. I do, I said. Very well. Karen's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then back up, confidence restored. If you want the boot removed, you'll need to pay the fine. I raised an eyebrow. To whom? The HOA. Which has no jurisdiction here. She stepped closer again, lowering her voice as if offering me a favor. Make this easy on yourself. People who fight the HOA tend to regret it. I looked past her, down the road, at the small metal survey marker embedded in the asphalt. I knew exactly where it was because I'd watched it get placed. I smiled. People who assume ownership they don't have tend to regret it more. Her expression hardened. I'm calling enforcement. Please do. That wasn't bravado. It was anticipation. As she turned away to make the call, pacing dramatically like she was summoning backup in a movie, I leaned against my car and waited. I wasn't in a rush. This road had been quiet for years, but something told me that silence was about to end. And whatever Karen thought she was enforcing, she just stepped onto ground she absolutely did not own. Karen paced in tight circles while she talked into her phone, her voice pitched just loud enough for me to hear fragments meant to intimidate. Words like unauthorized, non-compliant, hostile property owner floated back to me, carefully chosen to paint herself as the reasonable party trapped in a crisis she'd bravely stepped in to manage. She kept glancing over her shoulder, checking to see if I was sweating yet. I wasn't. I leaned against my car and scrolled through photos on my phone, zooming in on the boot, the HOA logo on the notice, and the tiny survey marker down the road. I took another photo of that too, just in case. Documentation had a calming effect on me. It always had. She ended the call with a sharp tap of her screen and turned, posture squared like she was stepping back onto a stage. They're on their way, she announced. Who is they? I asked. Parking enforcement. I smiled. From where? She hesitated for half a beat. Our contractor. Your HOA has a parking enforcement contractor. Yes. For a private road it doesn't own. She ignored that. Once they arrive, things will move very quickly. That sounded like a threat, but it landed more like wishful thinking. While we waited, a couple more cars passed through. One slowed enough for the driver to roll down his window. A middle-aged guy, baseball cap, curious eyes. Everything okay here? He asked. Karen stepped in instantly. Yes. HOA business. The man looked at the boot, then at me. This isn't HOA road. Karen snapped her head toward him. It's a community access route. The man frowned. No, it's not. We were told that years ago. Karen's smile didn't move, but her eyes hardened. Sir, please continue on your way. He did, but not before giving me a look that said, good luck with that. The road fell quiet again, cicadas buzzing in the trees, the kind of calm that makes confrontation feel louder than it should. Karen stood off to the side now, arms crossed, occasionally tapping her foot. Every few minutes she checked her phone, her irritation leaking through the cracks of her composure. You really should take this seriously, she said eventually. Non-compliance gets expensive. I am taking it seriously, I replied. That's why I haven't touched the boot. She smirked. Smart choice. Minutes later, a white pickup truck with magnetic signs on the doors turned onto the road. Parking Services was printed in bold letters, followed by a phone number. The driver slowed when he saw us, then parked behind my car. Karen straightened like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. A man in his 30s stepped out, wearing a reflective vest and holding a tablet. He looked tired in the way people do when they're paid to walk into arguments that aren't theirs. I'm here for a boot removal or escalation, he said. Karen pointed immediately. That vehicle. Unauthorized parking. Private HOA enforcement. The man glanced at me. You the owner? Yes, I said. Of the vehicle. And the road. He blinked. The road too. Karen let out a sharp laugh. He's confused. I'm not, I said. This road is deeded to me. HOA has no authority here. The man shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, do you have documentation showing HOA jurisdiction over this road? Karen waved her clipboard. We've used it for years. That's not documentation, he said carefully. She huffed. It's implied access. The man looked back at me. Sir, if this is a private road, we can't enforce here. Karen's voice jumped an octave. Yes, you can. We hired you to enforce HOA property, he replied. Not private land owned by someone else. She stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. Remove the boot after he pays the fine. He shook his head. I can't do that. Karen spun toward me, face flushing. You see what happens when you make things difficult. I crossed my arms. I see what happens when you overreach. The man cleared his throat. Honestly, ma'am, if this road isn't in your association map, we shouldn't have been called. Karen jabbed a finger at the asphalt. It leads to our neighborhood. That doesn't make it yours, he said. For the first time since I'd met her, Karen looked rattled. Not furious, not smug. Uncertain. She flipped through papers on her clipboard, pages rustling louder than necessary, as if the right authority might materialize if she shuffled hard enough. This is ridiculous, she muttered. Everyone knows this road is ours. I pointed down toward the survey marker. That marker says otherwise. She followed my finger, squinting. What is that? A boundary marker, I said. Installed by a licensed surveyor. Filed with the county. The man nodded slowly. If that's accurate, this boot never should have gone on. Karen snapped her head toward him. You already put it on. Based on what you told us, he replied. Which appears to be incorrect. The silence that followed was heavy. Cicadas buzzed louder. Somewhere, a bird took off. Karen's phone buzzed again. She checked it, then looked up, jaw set. This isn't over, she said. The HOA will address this formally. I look forward to it, I said. She rounded on the contractor. Remove the boot. He hesitated. Normally we need authorization. She thrust her clipboard at him. You have it. He looked at me. Sir. Please remove it, I said. And document why it was placed. He nodded and knelt beside my car, unlocking the boot with practiced motions. The metal clanged softly as it came free, the sound oddly satisfying. Karen turned away while he worked, pretending to check emails, but her shoulders were tight, her posture rigid. When the boot came off, she spun back around. You got lucky, she said. I opened my car door and sat inside, not starting it yet. No, I said. I got accurate records. She stared at me for a long moment, then walked back to her car, heels clicking angrily against the pavement. As she drove off, tires a little faster than necessary, I knew this wasn't the end. It never is with people like her. But now she knew something important. The road she thought she controlled had teeth. And next time, I wouldn't just be waiting. The HOA didn't wait long. 3 days later, I woke up to an envelope taped to my front gate, flapping slightly in the morning breeze like it wanted to be seen. Thick paper. Official font. My name spelled correctly, which already told me someone had done more than a casual Google search. I made coffee first. I've learned never to read threats without caffeine. Inside the envelope was a notice of violation, printed on HOA letterhead, signed by Karen, complete with a list of alleged offenses. Unauthorized obstruction of community access, interference with HOA operations, harassment of HOA representatives. The irony was impressive. I laughed out loud when I reached the fine amount. It was high enough to feel punitive, but just low enough that someone less stubborn might pay it to make the problem disappear. That's who this was for. Not me. The previous owner. The quiet neighbor. The people who didn't want trouble. At the bottom was the kicker. Failure to comply may result in towing, immobilization, or legal action. She really hadn't learned a thing. I drove down the road mid-morning, slower than usual, just to see if anything had changed. It hadn't. Same asphalt. Same trees. Same boundary marker. stubbornly existing exactly where it was supposed to. But now there was something new. A sign. It was planted on the shoulder of the road, bright white with bold red lettering. No parking. HOA enforced. I pulled over and stared at it, engine idling. The sign wasn't even subtle. It was aggressive, declarative, and completely imaginary in terms of authority. I got out and walked up to it. Cheap metal post. Freshly driven into the ground. No permit tag. No county marking. Just Karen's confidence hammered straight into my property. I took photos from every angle, then stepped back and looked down the road toward the HOA neighborhood. 2 people stood near the entrance, pretending not to watch me while very obviously watching me. Karen had an audience now. I didn't pull the sign out. Not yet. I wanted the full picture before I touched anything. Instead, I got back in my car and drove into town. By noon, I had copies of my deed, the road maintenance agreement, the survey plat, and the county filing that clearly showed the HOA boundary stopping well short of my asphalt. The clerk recognized the look on my face immediately. "HOA problem?" she asked. I smiled thinly. "Something like that." By the time I got home, the sign had company. 2 orange cones sat beside it, angled just enough to look official without actually doing anything. Karen was escalating visually now, trying to create reality through props. I parked deliberately beside the sign, got out, and stood there with my phone out. That's when she arrived. Her SUV pulled up fast and stopped short, gravel crunching under the tires. She got out already talking, phone pressed to her ear, voice loud and urgent. "Yes, I'm on site." "He's interfering again." She ended the call and marched toward me. "You removed the boot illegally," she said. "I didn't touch it." "You intimidated our contractor. He disagreed with you." She pointed at the sign. "This is posted notice. You're in violation again." I looked at it, then back at her. "You installed this on my property." "This is HOA road," she snapped. "No, it's not." She laughed, sharp and brittle. "We're past that debate." I felt a flicker of admiration for her confidence. It was impressive in the same way watching someone walk confidently into traffic is impressive, right up until the impact. "You put unauthorized signage on my land," I said. "That's trespassing." She stepped closer, invading my space. "You don't get to redefine community infrastructure." I held up my phone. Smile. "This is going to be useful." Her face tightened. "You can't record me. I'm on my property." She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, eyes darting briefly to the boundary marker down the road. I saw it then. The doubt. Small but real. "You're harassing the HOA," she said instead. "You're impersonating authority." That did it. Her voice rose, sharp enough to cut through the quiet afternoon. "I am the authority here." A couple from the HOA side had wandered closer now, drawn by the sound. Karen turned slightly, making sure they could hear. "He refuses to follow the rules," she announced. "He's blocking emergency access." I looked past her at the perfectly clear road. "What emergency? You don't know when one might happen. That's not how ownership works." She spun back to me, eyes blazing. "You're going to regret this." "Put that in writing," I said. "Oh wait. You already did." Her phone buzzed again. She answered immediately, pacing, nodding, shooting me looks like daggers. When she hung up, her smile was back, wider this time. "Towing is being dispatched," she said. "We'll see what the sheriff thinks." I felt my pulse pick up, not from fear, but from something close to excitement. This was the moment she crossed from annoying into actionable. "I'll wait," I said. She smirked. "Good." While we waited, I walked calmly over to the sign, grabbed it firmly, and pulled it straight out of the ground. Karen screamed. "You can't do that." I laid the sign gently in the grass. "Yes, I can." She rushed toward me, phone already up, filming now. "This is evidence of you trespassing." Her hands were shaking. "You're digging yourself deeper." "Then stop digging," I said. Sirens sounded in the distance. Karen's face lit up like Christmas. "Oh," she said softly. "Here we go." I stood there, feet planted on my road, documents in my car, cameras rolling from 3 different angles now. Whatever she thought was coming for me, she had no idea what she'd just invited onto ground she didn't own. The sirens grew louder, echoing off the trees, and Karen's smile stretched so wide it looked painful. She stood a little taller, squared her shoulders, and adjusted her blazer like she was preparing for a photo op. This was her moment. Authority was arriving, and in her mind, authority always agreed with her. The patrol car rolled to a stop beside us, lights off, engine humming. A deputy stepped out slowly, hand resting near his belt, eyes moving from Karen to me, then to the sign lying in the grass. "What seems to be the issue?" he asked. Karen jumped in before I could open my mouth. "He's blocking a community road, vandalized HOA property, and is interfering with emergency access." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "Emergency access to what?" "Our neighborhood," she said sharply. "This is an HOA-controlled road." He turned to me. "Sir." "I own the road," I said. "She doesn't." Karen scoffed loudly. "He keeps saying that." The deputy looked down the asphalt, then back at us. "Do you have documentation?" I nodded. "In my car." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "He can print anything." The deputy held up a hand. "Let's take a breath." I retrieved the folder from my passenger seat and handed it over. "Deed, survey, plat map, county filings." The deputy flipped through them slowly, his expression shifting from neutral to mildly interested. Karen crossed her arms. "We've been using this road for years." "That doesn't transfer ownership," the deputy said without looking up. Her jaw tightened. He crouched near the edge of the road, studying the survey map, then glanced at the metal marker embedded in the asphalt. He walked over to it, bent down, brushed away a bit of dirt with his boot. "This matches," he said. Karen's confidence wavered. "That marker must be wrong." "They don't usually put them in by accident," he replied. She laughed nervously. "So what, anyone can just block access?" "No one's blocked anything," he said. "There's no gate. No obstruction. Just a parked car." Karen pointed at the sign in the grass. "He destroyed posted notice." The deputy followed her finger. "Whose sign?" "The HOA's." He looked at me. "Did you put that sign there?" "No," I said. "She did." "Without permission." Karen's voice shot up. "Because it's HOA road." The deputy straightened and finally looked at her directly. "Ma'am, based on this documentation, the HOA does not own this road." Silence dropped hard. "That's impossible," she said. "It's not," he replied calmly. "It happens more often than you'd think." She took a step back, then forward again, scrambling. "But emergency vehicles can still use it," he said. "Private roads don't block emergency access unless they're gated or obstructed. This isn't." Her face flushed deep red. "He's harassing the HOA." The deputy glanced at me. "Have you threatened her?" "No." "Yelled?" "No." "Touched her property?" "Only removed unauthorized signage from my land." The deputy nodded slowly, then turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, placing signage on private property without permission is trespassing." Her mouth opened, then closed. "I was enforcing rules." "You don't have authority here." She stared at him like he'd insulted her personally. "So you're just going to let him get away with this?" "Get away with owning his property?" the deputy asked. I bit back a smile. Karen's phone buzzed again. She looked down, then back up, desperation creeping into her voice. "The HOA lawyer will clear this up." "That's between you and them," the deputy said. "Right now, I'm advising you to remove any HOA property from this road." She shook her head. "No. This isn't over." The deputy sighed. "I believe you." He handed my documents back to me. "Sir, you're within your rights." "Thank you," I said. As he walked back to his patrol car, Karen stood frozen, staring at the ground like it might betray her further. When the car pulled away, the quiet felt heavier than before. She finally looked up at me, eyes sharp, voice low. "You embarrassed me." "You trespassed," I replied. Her lips curled. "The board will hear about this." "I hope they do." She stormed back to her SUV, slammed the door, and sped off down the road, tires kicking up dust. I watched her go, then picked up the sign and leaned it against a tree. The road was quiet again, but I knew better now. Karen wasn't done. People like her don't stop when they're wrong. They stop when they're exposed. And she'd just given me everything I needed to make that happen. The HOA meeting notice showed up that Friday, taped to my mailbox like a challenge. Special session. Road access dispute. Attendance requested. Requested was generous. The tone of the message made it clear they expected me to show up, preferably nervous, preferably alone, preferably unprepared. Karen's name was listed at the bottom as compliance chair, bolded like a threat. I decided to attend. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see how far she'd taken this behind closed doors. The meeting was held in the community center just inside the HOA boundary, a squat beige building with folding chairs, bad lighting, and the unmistakable smell of burned coffee. I arrived early and sat in the back, documents in a neat folder on my lap. A few board members clustered at the front, whispering, glancing at me like I was a pop quiz they hadn't studied for. Karen arrived last. She walked in like she owned the room, heels sharp against the tile, blazer pressed, expression composed but tight. She didn't look at me directly, but I could feel her awareness like static in the air. The meeting started with procedural nonsense, minutes approval, budget notes, things no one cared about. Then Karen cleared her throat. "We have an ongoing compliance issue," she said, "regarding unauthorized obstruction of community infrastructure." Every head turned toward me. I raised a hand slightly. "Before you continue, I want to clarify something." Karen ignored me. "This individual has repeatedly interfered with HOA operations, intimidated contractors, and damaged posted notices." "That did it." I stood. "You booted my car on a road you don't own." Murmurs rippled through the room. Karen snapped toward the board. "He's disrupting the meeting." "I was invited," I said. "And I brought receipts." I walked to the front and laid my folder on the table, spreading out copies of the deed, survey, and county filings. The board president, a tired-looking man with reading glasses, leaned forward. "This road," I said, tapping the plat map, "is private. Owned by me. Maintained by me. Outside your jurisdiction." Karen laughed, forced and brittle. "That document is misleading." The president frowned. "It's a county filing." Karen's voice rose. "We've relied on that road for years." "That reliance," I said, "was never authorized." One of the board members, a woman who looked genuinely uncomfortable, spoke up. "Karen, did we ever verify ownership?" Karen shot her a look. "It was assumed." The room went quiet. The president rubbed his temples. "Assumed isn't good enough." Karen leaned forward. "If we lose access, emergency response times could be impacted." I nodded. "Which is why I've never blocked the road." "Yet," Karen muttered. I looked at her. "You planted signs. You called contractors. You called law enforcement. On my land." The president exhaled slowly. "That's a liability issue." Karen's head snapped toward him. "Excuse me. If what he's saying is true," he continued, "the HOA could be exposed." Karen's confidence cracked. "Just a hairline fracture, but I saw it." "This is turning into a legal circus," she said. "Because he refuses to cooperate." "I refuse to surrender property," I replied. The uncomfortable board member spoke again. "Karen, the deputy sided with him." Karen stiffened. "That deputy was misinformed." The president leaned back. "We need to pause enforcement immediately." Karen stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly. "You can't do that." "I can," he said. "As president." Her eyes burned. You're undermining me. I'm protecting the HOA. She looked around, searching for support. Found none. This isn't over, she said, pointing at me. He's manipulating you. I met her gaze calmly. I'm documenting you. That landed. The meeting adjourned early. No resolution, but something better. Doubt. The board members avoided Karen's eyes as they filed out. She lingered near the front, phone already in her hand, typing furiously. As I left, the president caught up to me. If you're willing, he said quietly, we'd like to review this formally. I welcome that, I replied. Outside, the sun was low, the parking lot half empty. Karen stood by her SUV waiting. You think you won, she said. I think you overreached. She smiled thinly. I'll make sure the HOA remembers your name. I smiled back. Make sure they spell it right. As I drove away, I felt it clearly now. The shift. Karen had lost control of the narrative inside her own house. And people like her don't handle that quietly. They escalate. Which meant Chapter 5 wasn't the climax. It was the warning. Karen escalated the following week in a way that felt almost personal. It started with the letters. Not emails. Not calls. Certified mail. 3 envelopes in 2 days, each heavier than the last, each stamped with language meant to look intimidating if you didn't read carefully. Alleged damages. Administrative fees. Emergency access mitigation costs. One even suggested retroactive fines for prior years of unauthorized obstruction, which was impressive considering I'd owned the road longer than she'd lived in the neighborhood. I laid them out on my kitchen table and laughed so hard I had to sit down. This wasn't enforcement anymore. This was panic disguised as paperwork. By Wednesday, the road had new decorations. Temporary cones appeared overnight, spaced carefully along the shoulder. Not blocking anything, just enough to suggest official activity. Someone had spray-painted small white arrows near the edge of the pavement, pointing nowhere in particular. Visual noise. Confusion tactics. Karen wanted it to look messy. Disputed. Unclear. I checked my security footage. 2 figures in reflective vests, faces obscured by hoodies, moving quickly and nervously. One of them stopped to look straight at my camera before adjusting the cone. That clip got saved immediately. I called the county that afternoon. Not to complain. To ask questions. The woman I spoke to sighed the moment I explained. HOA boundary issue? Yes. Again. That one word told me everything. She directed me to the right department, and by Friday, a county road supervisor and a zoning officer were scheduled to meet me on-site the following Monday. I didn't tell the HOA. I didn't warn Karen. I wanted this clean. Karen, meanwhile, went louder. She sent out a community-wide notice claiming the road was under temporary review due to safety concerns caused by a non-compliant landowner. My name wasn't mentioned, but the implication was clear. Suddenly, neighbors I barely knew were slowing as they passed my driveway, curiosity painted all over their faces. One SUV stopped outright. A woman leaned out the window. Are you really blocking emergency vehicles? No, I said. She hesitated. Karen said. I have paperwork, I said calmly. A lot of it. She nodded slowly and drove off, doubt replacing certainty. That mattered. Saturday morning, Karen showed up again. No clipboard this time. Just her phone and a tight smile. We can resolve this quietly, she said. That depends, I replied. She gestured vaguely at the road. An easement. You grant access. HOA maintains it. Everyone wins. And what do I get? She blinked. Goodwill. I laughed. You booted my car. That was a misunderstanding. You called towing. Law enforcement. You planted signs. She crossed her arms. You embarrassed me. There it is, I said. Her smile vanished. If you don't cooperate, the board will pursue legal remedies. I'm counting on it. She stared at me, really stared this time, like she was trying to recalibrate her understanding of the situation. People like Karen rely on fear. On social pressure. On the assumption that no one wants to be the difficult one. She finally turned and walked away without another word. Monday came fast. The county vehicles arrived mid-morning. White trucks with logos that actually mattered. Clipboards with real authority behind them. Karen arrived too, flustered, clearly uninvited but unwilling to miss the show. The zoning officer walked the road slowly, stopping at the marker, checking coordinate. The road supervisor examined the asphalt, the signage remnants, the cones. "This is private," he said plainly. Karen jumped in. "But it serves the community." "That doesn't change ownership," he replied. The zoning officer turned to her. "Did the HOA install signage here?" Karen hesitated. "Temporarily. Without permit?" "Yes." He made a note. The road supervisor looked at me. "You didn't block access?" "No." He nodded. "Good. Because if you had, we'd be having a different conversation." Karen's face tightened. The zoning officer turned to her again. "You'll need to remove all HOA property from this road immediately." Karen's voice wobbled. "We were acting in good faith." "That's not a legal standard," he said. They handed me a written confirmation before they left. Private road. No HOA jurisdiction. Unauthorized signage noted. Karen stood there as they drove off, staring at the paper in my hand like it was radioactive. "This doesn't end it," she said. "It actually does," I replied. "You just don't know it yet." That night, I organized everything. Photos, videos, letters, meeting notes, county confirmations. I didn't send anything yet. I waited. Because the more Karen pushed, the more evidence she created. And she was running out of room to push without falling straight into it. Karen didn't go quiet after the county visit. She went underground. For a few days, nothing happened. No signs. No cones. No letters taped to gates. The road stayed clean and empty, the way it always had. That silence was louder than anything she'd done before. People like Karen don't retreat. They regroup. I found out how she planned to regroup on Thursday morning. A certified letter arrived from a law firm I'd never heard of, printed on expensive paper with enough Latin sprinkled through it to scare someone who didn't know better. The letter accused me of interfering with a prescriptive easement, claimed the HOA had established rights through long-term use, and demanded I cease all actions that might chill community access, while the matter was under review. I read it twice. Then I smiled. Because prescriptive easement claims require one critical thing: proof. And Karen had already spent weeks creating the opposite. I forwarded the letter to my attorney with a single line. She finally hired help. The response came back faster than I expected. 2 hours later, my attorney called me, voice calm and almost amused. "She didn't tell them everything," he said. Of course she didn't. She omitted the county ruling, the deputy report, and the fact that the HOA installed signage without permits. That tracks. He paused. "Do you want to end this politely or permanently?" I looked out the window at the road, sunlight cutting clean lines across asphalt that had never belonged to anyone but me. "Permanently," I said. The next HOA meeting was announced that same night. Emergency session. Legal update. Mandatory attendance for board members. Karen wanted control back. She wanted to frame this before the truth reached the wider community. I decided to help her. The meeting room was packed this time. Homeowners filled every folding chair, whispers bouncing off the walls. Karen sat at the front, stiff-backed, hands folded, jaw clenched so tightly I wondered if her teeth hurt. The HOA attorney stood beside her, flipping through notes, already looking uncomfortable. The board president opened the meeting with a shaky welcome, then nodded to Karen. She stood. "The HOA is facing obstruction from a non-member landowner who is threatening community access." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I stood up. "I'd like to respond," I said. Karen spun toward me. "You're not on the agenda. I'm the reason for it." The president hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. I walked to the front and handed the attorney a folder. His brow furrowed as he flipped through it. Then his posture changed. Straightened. Alert. "What is this?" he asked. "County confirmations," I said. "Deputy incident report. Video footage. Photos of unauthorized signage. Certified letters." Karen's head snapped toward him. "You already sent a demand letter." "Yes," he said slowly, eyes still scanning. "Based on incomplete information." The room went quiet. One homeowner raised a hand. "Karen told us emergency vehicles were blocked." "They weren't," I said. "Ever." The attorney looked up. "In fact, based on this documentation, the HOA has no legal claim to that road." Karen stood abruptly. "That's not true." He turned to her. "Why wasn't I informed about the county ruling?" Her face went pale. "It wasn't final. It was written." The president leaned forward. "Karen." She opened her mouth, then closed it. The attorney sighed. Continuing enforcement could expose the HOA to significant liability. A murmur turned into chatter. Another homeowner spoke up. "Did she really boot his car?" "Yes," the attorney said. "Without authority." The room erupted. Karen's voice cracked. "I was protecting the community." "You were risking it," the president replied. "I didn't say anything. I didn't need to." The story was telling itself now. The attorney cleared his throat. "My recommendation is immediate cessation of all enforcement actions related to that road, written apology, and reimbursement of any incurred costs." Karen stared at him like he'd betrayed her. "This is your fault," she hissed, pointing at me. I finally spoke. "You made it my problem." The board president stood. "Karen, effective immediately, you're relieved of compliance duties pending review." The room froze. "What?" she whispered. "You acted without authorization," he said. "Repeatedly." Karen grabbed her purse and stormed out, heels echoing down the hallway, the sound sharp and hollow. As the meeting dissolved into noise, the attorney approached me quietly. "If you pursue damages, you'll win." "I know," I said. "Are you going to?" I looked toward the door Karen had slammed shut. "No," I said. "The road's enough." Outside, the night air felt lighter. The road lay quiet under the streetlights, unchanged, unmoved by weeks of imagined authority. Karen had lost the board. She'd lost the narrative. And by tomorrow, she'd lose something else too. Her illusion of control. Only one chapter remained. And it was going to land hard. Karen moved out 2 weeks later. I didn't hear it from her. I heard it from the road. A moving truck crawled past my driveway early on a Tuesday morning, suspension creaking under the weight of furniture and boxes. It stopped briefly near the HOA entrance, hazard lights blinking, before continuing on without turning down my road. That detail mattered. She wasn't even pretending anymore. By then, the HOA had already sent the apology. It arrived by email and certified mail, signed by the board president and CC'd to their attorney. The language was careful, neutral, almost sterile. No admission of wrongdoing, but plenty of acknowledgement of overreach. They confirmed, in writing, that the road was private, that the HOA had no jurisdiction, and that no future enforcement action would be taken. They also included a reimbursement check. I didn't cash it right away. Not out of spite. I just wanted to let it sit there for a moment, physical proof that this had ended exactly where it should have. With them backing away quietly and me still standing on my own land. The final piece came the following Friday. Karen emailed me. No CC. No board address. Just her. The message was short. She claimed she'd acted in the community's best interest. She suggested misunderstandings on both sides. She implied the board had overreacted. She asked, carefully, whether I planned to pursue further action now that she was no longer involved. I read it twice, then deleted it. I didn't owe her closure. What I did owe myself was finality. So that afternoon, I did one last thing. I installed a sign. Not aggressive. Not flashy. No red lettering. Just a small, clean metal sign mounted neatly at the entrance to the road. Private road. No HOA jurisdiction. Emergency access maintained. I filed the permit. I logged the installation. I took photos. I documented everything the way I always had. Calm. Boring. Unassailable. Neighbors slowed to read it as they passed. Some nodded. A few waved. One guy gave me a thumbs up out his window. The road didn't change. It didn't need to. It had done its job. A week later, the board president stopped by unexpectedly. He stood near the edge of the asphalt, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. "I wanted to apologize in person," he said. "We should have verified things sooner." I nodded. "You did eventually." He hesitated. "She caused a lot of damage." "I know. She thought authority meant momentum," he said. "That if she moved fast enough, no one would question it." "That works," I said, "until it doesn't." He glanced down the road. "You're not going to block access, are you?" "No," I replied. "I never planned to." He smiled faintly, relief visible. "Good." After he left, I walked the road alone. The trees cast long shadows across the asphalt, the survey marker catching the light exactly where it always had. Nothing dramatic. No victory lap. Just quiet ownership, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Karen never contacted me again. Her name faded from HOA minutes, then from conversations, then from memory. Authority, it turns out, doesn't survive exposure very well. The road stayed open. Emergency vehicles passed when they needed to. Neighbors came and went. Life resumed its normal, boring rhythm. And every time I parked my car on my own road, unbooted and unquestioned, I was reminded of one simple truth. Ownership isn't about who acts the loudest. It's about who's still standing when the noise stops.